We come onto the air tonight with breaking news and the third night of protesting here in the Queen City. We have a reporter, Lexi Wilson, who is live at BB&T at 4th and College, where things are escalating at this hour. Lexi, can you tell us what you're seeing?
Yeah, wow. Well, Fred, things just really escalated. Right now, we just saw that CMPD did use some tear gas. And let's hear what that was. Not too sure, and they were also firing some rubber bullets, it seems. Now, I do want to give you guys kind of an idea of what led up to this. Basically, protesters were walking past Ink and Ivy, and about 3 different fireworks. Let's watch what's happening right now. CMPD seems to be advancing at the moment. Again, this is on College and 4th Street. Tear gas has been used, but again, Fred, some fireworks were shot into Ink and Ivy. That is a restaurant. People were dining and watching the protesters walk by. While that was happening, again, those fireworks were thrown, and that's when things really escalated.
Okay, I want to make sure I understand.
And as you can see, it's unfolding right now.
Okay, I want to understand, make sure I understand what you're saying, Lexi. So people were they were dining inside of Ink and Ivy or outside of Ink and Ivy while this was happening, and that's when protesters started throwing things at that restaurant. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, so that's correct. So basically, they had some diners outside on the kind of balcony area, and they were watching protesters as they were walking down the street peacefully. There was nothing going on. Again, a peaceful protest walking past Ink and Ivy, but then a protester did throw fireworks at the restaurant. About 3 fireworks is what we saw go off. And then that's when things started to escalate. People started to get a little more rowdy, and then people started running, and then now this is kind of where we're at right now. CMPD at a standstill, and right before we just took this live shot, there was some tear gas used, and we did see some rubber bullets used as well.
Okay, Lexi,
Fred?
Thank you for that report. I want you to be sure you keep a safe distance while you're paying attention to what they're doing. We're going to check in now with our Brandon Goldner, who is also watching live images unfold in front of him. Brandon, tell us where you are and what you're seeing.
Well, Fred, we're right now on College and East 4th. We were heading down on South College towards the epicenter when we stopped and we saw the vans of riot officers in their gear heading towards. Right now, officers are directing traffic, trying to get everyone with cars, getting them away from this area. Right now, the riot officers are lined up right now in front of BB&T. We have over here protesters yelling and shouting at officers after we heard the loud bangs that sounded like it came from officers, as well as the fireworks that we saw. Right now, officers are lining up towards, you can see some of the officers are shifting their location. We have people ahead back towards Tryon Street right now. We have more officers coming in from the left side. We see some officers with their weapons that they use when it comes to deploying chemical agents. Right now, you see some of the officers right now. They are kneeling down right now, putting on their gas masks. So it just a heads up to all the other reporters who are in the area. They are right now kneeling down, putting up their gas masks, which is an indication that they are going to be deploying it. We still have protesters right now. Besides, it's been peaceful the entire time. We're seeing a couple projectiles thrown. We've seen the fireworks. It had been peaceful the entire time until these few incidents that happened, and now we're seeing a little bit of that escalation. We're starting to see some protesters ahead on Tryon, seeing some water bottles being thrown at a distance. Right now, officers putting on their gas masks and kneeling down to doing that, while other officers are keeping standby right now. So this is still at College and East 4th Street. And we have a lot of people on cell phones keeping an eye on what is going on. We have some people in front of BB&T holding their signs, and we just heard, it sounded like an announcement from CMPD, one of those mechanical announcements that you hear about dispersing. Everyone's just watching officers as they're putting on their gas masks and getting ready. They are facing the direction of East 4th Street right now. We have officers ahead on ahead of College Street, 1 block over, where we're seeing a lot of them blocking traffic from any cars coming through. We're starting to see some of the protesters up ahead. It looks like some protesters are on, it appears they are on Tryon heading back. So we'll let you guys get back to, I'll send it back over to you, friend Tanya, right now as we try to figure out what's happening next.
Brandon, can I ask you a question really quickly? I know earlier you talked a lot about how you saw a lot of demonstrators that were kind of working amongst themselves to quell some of the issues as they were cropping up. Do you see any of that effort underway where you are right now?
Where we're at right now, no, just because we're back towards where officers are right now. But we had seen earlier, we had seen people in those scooters that you usually rent and drive around. We had seen them urging people to be quiet and be patient and not use any cursing towards officers. I haven't been able to see some of them right now just because of the distance we're at. And it looks like right now we're once again seeing officers advancing. So hopefully we'll get a little bit closer just to see if we see some of those people who've been trying to quell everything. But right now I haven't been able to see those individuals, and we actually have some individuals standing in front of officers and some people running right now on Tryon back towards the direction of South End right now. So I'll send it back over to you guys for the time being as we figure out where officers are going to start moving.
Okay, Brandon, we'll let you get your bearings. Let's go check in now with Kendall Morris if we can. Kendall, you're uptown right now too, right? What are you seeing where you are?
Well, Tanya, I'm outside of CMPD headquarters at East Strait and North Davidson, and just back here at this intersection in the last couple of seconds, even as Brandon was wrapping up, there was a line of officers blocking the entrance to CMPD here. They were on bicycles, and as Brandon was talking, they hopped on those bicycles and headed off across East Strait, across Uptown. I'm assuming that they would be going towards the situation that's happening on the other side of Uptown. Now, also here at CMPD, we have a line of officers protecting the parking lot in front of the headquarters here. Now, this is a dwindled presence from what we saw earlier. They are in protective gear. They have shields and things like that. But earlier tonight, about maybe an hour and a half ago, we did see a large group of those protesters here in front of CMPD. Nothing got violent. We did see one person throw a water bottle over the police line. But overall, even though protesters and police were facing off at a line and a standstill here at this intersection, nothing got violent, and it was relatively peaceful. I know that Heal Charlotte and their leaders are out here tonight. They are trying to keep the peace and trying to create that dialogue between police and the community that is out here trying to get their message across. And so we will continue to keep you updated. We are probably going to head over to where Brandon and Lexi are on the other side of Uptown to try to help them with our coverage there, because it seems like this situation here at CMPD has settled down quite a bit from where it was an hour ago. We'll send it back to you.
Okay. Thank you, Kendall Morse reporting. Be safe as you make your way to Brandon and Lexi's direction. If you're just now joining us now, you'll probably notice that we've had our coverage. We've been watching this for several hours now, even though we haven't been on your televisions. But things have escalated over the past, I would say, hour or so. Things before that were pretty calm throughout the day. You heard our reporter just talk about, Kendall Morris just talk about Heal Charlotte that was out there trying to promote dialogue, trying to promote peace and a constructive protest. And as you can see, things have escalated over the past hour or so. I'm paying attention to Charlotte-Mecklenburg Police Department's Twitter feed, and they are talking about the same thing you're hearing from our reporters. Reports of protesters arming themselves with bricks in front of the epicenter. Violence and destruction, they say, of property, not a solution. That coming from the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Police Department's Twitter feed, Tanya.
And really, that just came out just in the last 45 minutes or so, because I don't know if you were with us around 10 o'clock, but when we checked in with all of our crews in the field then, there was a much different tone than what we're seeing right now. Things have definitely ratcheted up in intensity. And one thing that CMPD did talk about, you know, we talked about some of the outside organizations that have been coming in. Well, we heard from the chief yesterday, and what we're hearing from officers that are out there about the importance of having these conversations instead of confrontations. So we've seen a lot of dialogue and a lot of effort by the part of the officers out there to try to keep the conversations going and to try to prevent these kinds of situations from escalating. So as we're now seeing them putting on their riot gear, obviously they have noticed a shift in tone as well, and they're responding accordingly.
Yeah, they just tweeted about 5 minutes ago that violent activity escalating, several protesters throwing bottles and rocks. A dispersal order has been issued to protect lives. I want to check in with our Brandon Goldner, who is on the ground where things are escalating at this point. Brandon, if you can hear me, tell us what you're seeing.
Yeah, well, Fred, it really started to escalate. You know, we had the live cut-in at the epicenter as we saw protesters walking through. Everything was peaceful. They stopped, I believe it was the intersection of Tryon and Tryon and 3rd, where they stopped traffic, they stayed there. Everything seemed to be okay. Then they began circling around. It was right at the moment when the fireworks happened near Ink and Ivy, and I was actually commenting to photojournalists Reed and Mike that were with me right now and saying that look at all the people that are inside Ink and Ivy just drinking and having a good time, while just a few blocks away these protests are happening. And it was right then when we saw the fireworks going off from where we were at our vantage point. That's when things really started to escalate and people started heading back towards the epicenter from Romare, Bearden Park and Ink and Ivy. That's when we started hearing a lot more, seeing some more of the fireworks. We saw some of the water bottles up here, they were being thrown. That's when things really started to escalate, and definitely want to emphasize everything was peaceful. It was incredibly peaceful and have diverse crowds, but it was just those few moments, those moments when we had the fireworks going off and then seeing some of those bottles being thrown. That's when everything started to escalate, and you started seeing these officers getting into their riot gear and getting into their gas masks. Right now we have officers stationed right here. We have the bike officers that you've been seeing constantly. They're heading back over towards the other side of epicenter right now. As we're in College Street right now, I believe there were some other riot officers that were on the other side of where we're at right now. It appears that they're starting to create that path that we had been talking about earlier, and especially yesterday. We had seen how some of these officers are really pushing people into the direction they wanted. So, watch out, we got a car right here. So, right now, let's see, we still have some of the bike officers. Traffic is stopped on College Street. Yep, and I think those are the officers who are in those dirt bikes right now as they're heading up. I believe that's what it is. So we're still keeping an eye on everything right now. We have some people right over here. They have given a dispersal order, but still have some protesters that are standing in front, not engaging. They're just holding signs up. We have one individual, looks like one gentleman right over there, that is trying to talk with officers right now. Everything has seemed for the time being to have slowed down, for lack of a better term. Of course, as we've been talking, especially last night, we have seen things escalate quickly and then de-escalate. We saw that again today with people getting what ended up happening with Ink and Ivy. Now we're seeing some officers in some of the pickup trucks right now. They are heading over down towards passing epicenter right now. We're not 100% sure where the protesters are right now. We're kind of staying back a little bit and just seeing what is going on, whether there's any escalation. All right, we're going to start walking a little bit forward. We're going to try to see, we're going to obviously try to keep as safe as possible. And right, let's see, we have the bike officers right now over, heading up there. Oh, hold on one second. Let's just make sure. All right. We're going to start walking over, trying to stay at a decent distance and just not making sure that we're going to try to get in the middle, trying to stay behind everything, just to try to see where everything is right now. You see we have officers in the pickup trucks getting ready, getting staged. It looks like over here on towards the side of epicenter, that's what Mike, over here, it looks like that's where we have some of the protesters over here right now as we're heading past the epicenter right now to Trade Street and College Street. We're seeing some of the bike officers right now, some people on the side over here. It appears, let's see, it looks like we may have someone, is that someone who's being detained? It looks like, yeah, it looks like we may have someone who is being detained right now, someone that is being entered into one of the inmate transport vans. The officers right now are creating with their bicycles that we've seen before, creating a sort of barrier, a physical barrier between everything. Let's start moving down a little bit right now just to see who this individual is that is now being detained by officers. Yeah, it definitely, yep, Brandon, we can see, yeah, it's one individual who's being detained. Yes, yes, Fred.
I was going to say, as you make your way in that direction, and we see a person, it looks like a woman who they have detained. As you make your way in that direction, I noticed that you're talking about the different methods that police are using to operate. Do you see any differences from what you saw last night to what you're seeing tonight? You know, for example, I don't recall seeing pickups last night. Are there differences that you're noticing?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, probably the biggest difference, I mean, obviously the pickups are the first thing that we're seeing, but one other thing that was definitely noticeable, and apologies, we're seeing some of the remnants of the pepper spray. Yeah, it's a woman right there that is being brought into the police van. And as we're talking, we're seeing some of the pickup trucks coming through. One of the biggest differences is we didn't see much of the presence of riot officers. They were staying at CMPD throughout the day. It really had been the officers and bicycles that we have been seeing as they've been going, directing traffic and directing protesters as they've been marching. It's only really, I would say, in the past hour that we saw riot officers really getting on the move. Many of them have been staying at CMPD and staged there. And that is probably the biggest difference. And we are still seeing, once again, the pickup trucks, but it's some of the similar tactics when things start to escalate, when you have the officers using the bicycles to prevent people from coming through. It appears things have been dispersing just a little bit. We're trying to see if maybe we have a second individual that is being detained right now and being put in the back of the van. So we're not 100% sure what is happening and why they were arrested. So we should be finding out fairly soon. We're going to try to stay a bit of a distance so as not to interfere. Appears I'm looking, not sure if we have a third individual that is being detained right now, but right now officers are kind of in a group just chatting amongst themselves. So you have protesters, not really much of shouting that has been going on. It's just a lot of people that have been kind of just surrounding, keeping an eye and just filming on their cameras as this is happening right now. Let's see. Yeah, right now it appears the officers, they have two individuals, at least two individuals that we have seen personally in the van. It appears they're going to start moving right now. People really just, besides other news media, people especially right in front of the Omni Hotel that are just surrounding, just filming on their cell phone video, trying to see what is going on right now. It definitely has. We still have the riot officers on the other side, back where BB&T is right now. We're not sure if there are going to be other riot officers. We did see some riot officers that are heading back, it appears, towards CMPD. So let us see right now. It appears the officers and the bikes are getting ready to start moving, but right now everything is kind of, from our vantage point, started to slow back down a little bit. Again, it's that idea of everything being peaceful and then things starting to escalate just a bit and then de-escalating and then escalating that back and forth. I mean, we just had, as we were talking, that things are starting to get peaceful. All of a sudden we see people getting arrested right now. So
Brandon, we can put some of these arrests.
I'll send it back over to you guys. Oh, sorry, yes.
Yeah, I was going to say we can put some of these arrests into context. We obviously don't know what's happened here, but we know as of just a couple hours ago, there'd been 4 arrests so far tonight. Compare that to the 30 that we saw in total over the last couple of days. So the arrests definitely appeared to slow. Not necessarily an indication that there have been less encounters, less incidents, but certainly fewer that rose to the level of arrests. And, we also know as we have poured over some of these police reports that some of the common themes that have emerged with these arrests have been happening when people failed to disperse. So you mentioned just a few moments ago that you heard CMPD tell people that they needed to disperse, and that's one of the most common charges that we're seeing with a lot of the demonstrators who are getting arrested. Again, we don't know if that's what's happened here, but I just wanted to give viewers some context that that's been a pretty common thing that we're seeing, that the officers tell people that they need to disperse, people don't, and then they wind up handcuffed.
Absolutely, and yeah, right now we're just seeing right now, you saw on your TV, one of the people who was suspect being given a drink of water, tears in her eyes, and not sure. I mean, we definitely, as we were coming over here, feeling some of the effects of that pepper spray. I mean, even still talking now, it's still difficulty breathing. We have some individuals who are engaging with the officers, trying to figure out what's going on, and right behind these individuals right here, we have obviously bike officers coming through here, and then you have someone with really, it's been a symbol we've been seeing a lot of, is the American flag flipped upside down as an indicator of problems in this nation. It is not seeing as much as yesterday at this point, but still seeing anger and a real frustration, really, at police and what has been going on around this country. A lot of people, we have been knowing that a lot of leaders have been saying about keeping everything peaceful right now, and we have someone shouting right now. We'll send it over to Lexi right now.
Yeah, hey there, Brandon. You're taking a live look at back into their vehicles and heading to a different location is what it seems to be happening right now. Again, we are outside the Omni Hotel, and there really has been, as Tanya had mentioned, just kind of a change out here, right? Earlier today it was much different. I actually want to pull up some video from earlier that we shot. We saw protesters, thousands in the street, kneeling on College and 4th, blocking traffic, but it was peaceful. And it was a powerful moment for these protesters as they were saying, "I can't breathe," right? Chanting those words that we know of George Floyd. So there's really been a shift out here. Right now we're not seeing too much, but again, earlier today, a much different story. We were hearing prayers, we were hearing singing, and again, it's seeming to intensify as the night has gone on. Well, and there is another video that I want to show you, Go ahead, Tanya.
No, it's fine. Keep going, Lexi. Keep going.
Okay, yeah. So, there is that other video that I wanted to show you that kind of led up to the incidents of where things started to escalate and the tear gas was used. Like I had said at the beginning of the show, protesters were peacefully walking past Ink and Ivy, a restaurant, and there were people in the restaurant out on the dining patio, and they were just watching the protesters peacefully walk by. But unfortunately, a protester did throw a firework. We actually saw 3 different fireworks thrown at Ink and Ivy, and that's when things really escalated, and people started running, people started screaming, and then that, like I said, things escalated at that point. But if we can take a live look right now, officers seem to be, gearing up to go to a different location, and of course we'll bring you the latest. I'm going to throw it back to you guys in studio.
All right, Lexi Wilson, thank you. Let's check in now with our Brandon Goldner. Brandon, what are you seeing at this point?
So this is actually really the eagle ears of Mike Hansen, who's behind the camera right now. The woman that is in that wagon was saying, "I can't breathe, I have asthma, I want a police car." So the officers have been engaging with her, and we have individuals right here who are saying to listen to her, starting to see more people coming in close in. The woman is still crying right now. The officers are talking to her right now, but we did hear that she was saying, "I can't breathe, I have asthma," and that she wants a police vehicle. And it looks like there she's standing up right now. I'm not sure if they're going to be bringing their own separate police vehicle or if they're going to just keep her. Yep, they're going to keep her in the wagon. And just take a moment, just listen. They're chanting, "She can't breathe." All right, it appears. Oh. All right, they're keeping her. They're right now. It appears she's trying to. It appears, yeah, she's trying to leave the vehicle, but they were pushing her back in. Right now, we're starting to see more protesters coming in a little bit closer. We're hearing the shouts of people saying, "She can't breathe." Hold on one second. I'm just going to try to keep the microphone, try to let you guys hear a little. And right now, yeah, a lot of people yelling, "She can't breathe," and officers just talking with her right now. Tears coming down her face as she's saying, "I can't breathe, I have asthma," and that she wants a police squad car instead of and as she's yelling out, she's screaming out, "I can't breathe." And then everyone else screaming, "She can't breathe." So we're starting to see officers in the bikes trying to block the access as more people are getting closer. Seeing it appears, it looks like hearing definitely lights and sirens, and there she is. Right there, a lot of people with their cell phones right now, people getting in the faces of officers saying, "She can't breathe," and saying, "Listen to her." It really getting emotional right now as people are asking for someone to help her right now. And you see people with their phones up right now, a lot of people recording this right now. It is people upset right now as what they're seeing right now. Of course, we don't know why she is being detained right now. We're just keeping eye just to see what's going on, but a lot of people right now starting to get a little bit closer. Now they're moving, they're pushing us a little bit. All right, we're going to start backing up a little bit. They're trying to create some space right now. Someone's. Hey, she's all right. All right, watch out, Mike. Watch out. So people are pulling her back right now. She was one of the people who were saying, listen to her, that the woman that's in that wagon saying she can't breathe. Let's back up a little bit. We're starting to see some of the pepper spray being used. Let's back up a little bit. Not being used right now, but they are holding it in their hands right now. Let me clarify that. So let's just back up just a little bit. You all right, Mike?
Okay, Brandon, you get somewhere safe. We'll take a look at the images that your photographer is showing us right now. It looks like the woman who was being restrained still has some choice words for police. We've dropped the audio down too. We have to be careful in these situations as people get heated and there's confrontation. Sometimes we can hear unsavory language, but clearly there's some frustration and anger toward the police and how the woman who they have taken into custody has been treated, at least from the point of view of the protesters who are there on the scene. One of the things to note that we've seen, that we saw transpire in these images, a man, one of the protesters, it appears, holding back, restraining the woman who we see there on the camera who is upset. That's the kind of leadership in the groups of protesters I think that police appreciate, because that situation could have turned out different from what we witnessed here, Tanya.
We've been hearing about so much more of that tonight too, really a concerted effort by members of the community to want to step up to help these demonstrations happen in a peaceful manner. If we compare this to last night, we saw a lot of things start to go off the rails hours earlier than what we're seeing right now, and I think that that is a result of a lot of the concerted effort that we're seeing by some of these organizations, some of these community leaders who are out there in the streets with them. We heard members of the community issuing this challenge yesterday to others, saying, if you really care about this cause, you will be down there standing with them, and we've seen so many incidents of that, of demonstrators telling one another, if you see somebody getting out of line, hold them back, pull them back, try your best to de-escalate ourselves. Really an effort to try to avoid the confrontations with police that were winding up with tear gas, that were winding up with arrests. You know, the members of these organizations and the demonstrators out there taking the time to look out for each other, to protect one another, and to try to quell this the best they can.
Yeah, and the thing that I'm noticing too, I mean, even collectively over the past 6, 7, 8 hours, if you're looking at CMPD's news feed on their Twitter account, the language and the account that they're giving of the events that have happened over those hours. I'm looking at a tweet that they posted 6 hours ago, shortly before 1 p.m. protesters beginning to peacefully assemble and have continued to do so as they march in Uptown, CMPD working to facilitate the continued demonstrations, and then within that same hour the community continuing to peacefully express their viewpoints, allowing for constructive conversations with CMPD. Images of officers talking to community members and engaging even children who were out there participating with some of these demonstrations and marches earlier. A different tone, also a different time of day. One thing that we've historically seen with these demonstrations as night falls, that is when tempers start to flare. That is when we see the confrontations between police. That is when we see property damaged. But even now, I will say this, the image that we're seeing now, a conversation between the man who I just said intervened with the woman who was upset and police, peacefully talking, and the engagement there cordial.
Which is really an impressive interaction to be watching as it's happening live too, because I think all of us sit and we worry those moments of tension where you see people face to face so close. We know how quickly all it takes is just one person in the crowd, one person who picks up a brick, one person who throws a stone, one person who throws a bottle. So the collective effort by everybody there, standing shoulder to shoulder, face to face, inches apart, the tension is palpable. And so to watch the concerted effort on both sides to de-escalate it, a big departure from what we've seen in other nights.
Yeah, we know that there's been a lot of work behind the scenes with other organizations, like my buddy Sean Lucky Corbett, who is a barber and a well-known community leader here in town, the founder of Cops and Barbers, which is an organization that has been used and modeled across the country, actually. To facilitate conversations between police and the community members, knowing that in situations like this, police know exactly who they can talk to, people who are real community leaders, not people that we see sometimes in coverage and people who take credit for leading protesters in their anger, but people who actually have influence and want to see these things conducted in a peaceful manner. Let's check in now with our Brandon Goldner, who was there on the scene, who was watching this with us.
Hey, guys, so right now they're actually going to be moving her to a squad car that just pulled up. The squad car, she is right over here. The squad car is coming in on my right side over here. They are moving her right now as we're going to be moving across here. You good right there? Mike, watch out, Mike, watch out. All right, so they're moving her right now. We're going to be walking across trying to see what she has to say. She's been talking. All right, sorry, give us 1 second. We're just going to try to swing around and see what we can get and how close we are able to get.
Yeah, that's right. So we just saw CMPD saying just a moment ago that they're continuing to give dispersal orders in this area.
Right now.
Okay.
All right. So they are moving her right now. We are going to just.
Okay, so obviously we're seeing this woman being put into some form of a squad car, which is what the woman was asking for. This is the same woman who we saw a few moments ago saying she couldn't breathe and asking to be put in this type of a vehicle as she was taken into custody rather than the other way that they had her detained. Those words are haunting for so many people for so many reasons. To hear that refrain of "I can't breathe" certainly harkens back to the whole reason why we're here in the first place, and that is George Floyd and the nearly 9 minutes that he had an officer's knee on his neck, screaming "I can't breathe," begging for help. So to hear those words in this moment now would definitely touch a chord and resonate with everybody in this crowd, and I'm sure with the officers as well.
Yeah, and this is not the best image or the best optics for the protest going on out here at this moment. You saw several police officers as they were trying to put that woman in the back of that vehicle. They were having a hard time. It looked like there was some resistance probably, and then they started to push back people from the scene as they tried to take control of that situation, and now they're off with her in the back of the vehicle. But obviously a struggle between that woman and the several cops who were trying to put her in the back of the car.
Let's go check in now with our Kendall Morris if we can. Kendall, I know you were moving away from CMPD headquarters. Where have you gotten to? Where are you seeing where you are now?
Right now, I am at Romare Bearden Park. We see that police have a line of officers in very heavily protected gear inside the park right now. As we arrived here, people were dispersing around the park and kind of running in a chaotic fashion here. There was a lot of bangs, and we don't know exactly what that was. I did see a firework go off inside of Romare Bearden Park. We tried to get a little bit closer, but some of the people out here in one of the groups, they started throwing things at our camera crew. So we have gone off to the side of the park to try to take a protective stance for our own safety. And so we are on the side of Romare Bearden. It seems like people are dispersing. They're not quite in an organized group in this area right now. But we are keeping an eye on the situation, and police are out here. They do have a heavy presence in Romare Bearden Park, and we've seen bicycle cops going around the park. There's also the helicopter overhead, so this area is heavily protected by a police presence at this time. We'll send it back to you.
Okay, Kendall Morris, live for us. Thank you, Kendall. Please be safe out there. You know, the governor weighing in on the situation happening in Charlotte earlier today. Let's listen in to what he said.
That group is praying on that. Violence and destruction is unacceptable. In many ways, those actions undermine peaceful pleas for justice. We must stop this destruction. But I want to remind everyone of something vitally important. We cannot focus so much on the property damage that we forget why people are in the streets in the first place. Racism, excessive use of force, health disparities, poverty, white supremacy. These are wrong. They are ugly, but they are present. We must deal with them.
Spoke Earlier, one of the things that he also talked about was his concern that when these demonstrations start to move into riots or when they start to move into violent acts or uprisings, that unfortunately a lot of the message gets lost, and his fear was that some of that message would get lost, and he was challenging demonstrators down there to not forget the reason why they're there and for the rest of us to not forget it either. So as we're watching some of these isolated incidents play out, some of these isolated incidents where we may see damage to property or hear reports of stones being thrown, the governor challenged us to remember the loss of life and the human toll that's at stake as well.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot to keep in mind here. Just to go back to what Kendall Morris was reporting outside of Romare Bearden Park, a friend of mine sending a message to me saying it's extremely loud and bright outside my apartment. He is above Romare Bearden. Tons of big fireworks, scary, he says. So that would be consistent with the reporting that our Kendall Morris had on the ground. I want to talk a little bit about the response and how strategically police are tackling this situation. You've noticed that police are using their bicycles and their traditional bicycles. They're also using dirt bikes. And we've seen pickups, and a lot of times, with these protests, they are strategically trying to control crowds. They're trying to control the narrative, so to speak, and how the interaction takes place. Do so without escalating, but trying to de-escalate, the engagement as it goes on throughout the night. And these bicycles allow them to form lines, allow them to be flexible, allow them to get in areas and traffic and between buildings and places that their vehicles wouldn't allow at a speed that if they were walking they wouldn't be able to get to. So we've seen them effectively be able to put up barricades and control where these protesters are marching.
We also saw reports of them using CATS buses earlier this evening, and we didn't recall seeing anything like that the last couple of days. It may have happened, but we just didn't know about it, and we know that they had dozens of officers that were on the CATS buses, and they were doing that so that they could either get ahead of the crowds or that they could ride right behind them, so that if they needed to deploy large groups of officers at once, they were right there, all contained and ready to go. So that's definitely a method that we heard that they would potentially be using tonight. I'm not seeing any of those CATS buses out there on the scene, but I know they were out there earlier this evening when we had larger groups of demonstrators out there, and fortunately those things remained peaceful. Let's check in now with our Brandon Goldner if we can to see if he can give us an update.
Hey guys, so we're now starting to see the riot officers getting to their vans. Not sure if they're going to be heading to Romare Bearden Park. We did see over by, it was a block away from College Street near BB&T where we saw some officers in the pickup trucks that were heading over, and we're going to see where these riot officers are going, if they're going to be heading towards Romare Bearden Park. The woman who was in that police van who was getting water from the officers and saying that she can't breathe, that she has asthma, and that she wanted a squad car. They eventually got a squad car, and it took several officers to eventually push her into the squad car, as well as the riot officers surrounding everyone as they were pushing her into the vehicle. They have since taken her away. Now we're waiting to see which direction the riot officers are heading. If they're going to be making a left onto East Trade, heading west on East Trade, that means that they're probably going to be heading towards Romare Bearden Park, where we have Kendall out there right now. So we're going to take a moment just to see which direction they're going. If they're heading towards Romare Bearden, then that means that there's something to keep an eye on, but actually instead they're going to be heading straight. Not sure if they're going to be heading back towards CMPD headquarters. Still right now just a lot of people that are out here with South College Street shut down right now. Still have a lot of people out here just standing around, a lot of people angry and upset about what they saw, about seeing spoke to one woman who was saying that she was just frustrated. You want to get a better? All right. We're going to start moving a little bit right now as we're going to be starting walking, but let me tell you just a little bit. We did see, all right, oh, hold on. We're hearing some chanting right now as people are heading up College Street towards BB&T. Right now, from what we had been just talking to people, especially some of the women who are out here and just upset and devastated, saying to listen to her. Many of them are frustrated. One woman, protesters actually had to hold her back because she was emotional and upset and angry about what she saw. We're now starting to see individuals making a right from South College Street right onto let me see, I believe this is, it basically is the street that's right parallel to BB&T, really going down that direction, making a right from the epicenter. That is going to be where the Romare Bearden Park is right now. It has started to clear out as people, just take a look right now, as people but leaving the epicenter. It appears that everyone is now heading towards Romare Bearden Park. Let me just get a quick second. This is East 4th Street, and just no police blocking traffic right now. It's just people out on the roadway. Still have cars out here that are waiting for people to clear and just going straight through. That's where people are heading right now. That's the direction of where Romare Bearden Park is. So we're going to follow and see what's going to be happening here. We did see some of the riot officers coming from this street where they were in their pickup trucks and heading over towards Romare Bearden Park. Some damage here, but at the same time, water bottles for people who are, who may need a drink of water. I mean, it's, again, there's contrast, and again, we're seeing some shouting right now, so. Sorry about that. Tanya, you were going to say something?
Well, I was just going to point out that CMPD recently updated their arrest count because we were talking about the arrests, and they say so far they've now had 9 arrests tonight during this evening's demonstrations, and several of them were involving weapons charges. We've seen certainly some of those kinds of arrests over the last couple of days as well. People who believe that they have a right to carry and may even have a permit to carry but are not aware or chose to ignore the fact that when you are in the middle of a protest, you cannot carry a weapon. And so we've seen a number of those kinds of weapons charges. Brandon, I see you've got some emergency vehicles coming towards you.
Yeah, we have a fire truck and we have a police car and then 2 battalion chiefs heading in the direction. It appears not if they're going to be heading towards, yeah, it looks like they're going to be heading towards Romare Bearden Park. You all right, Mike? All right, they're heading in the direction of Romare Bearden Park. That's where a lot of people have been going, so we're going to check out and see what is going on. Not sure if it's a medical call or if it's some sort of incident where you can see flames, but I know that is where some of our crews are, right at Romare Bearden Park, so we're going to head over there, see what is going on, along with a lot of people out here. They're just heading over to see what we can see. We got another battalion chief that is heading over there right now. We have some officers right in front of the First Citizen Bank in riot gear, and I think we have another watch out, Mike, we have another fire vehicle coming on over, so we're actually about, watch out, this. And now people are chanting, hands up, don't shoot. You can see right here, we still have traffic coming through here. No, like earlier, no police cars blocking, no police bikes blocking the traffic. So we're going to try to figure out and see what is going on. I'm going to send it back over to you guys as we're heading over.
Okay, Brandon Golder reporting live for us. Please be safe. We have heard from a number of community leaders throughout the evening, throughout the day. One of them, Mayor Vi Lyles, weighing in earlier today at a gathering. Let's listen.
Told people that we need to have protesting. People need to be able to express their rage and frustration. But we also have to respect the safety of the people that live in the city. Downtown is not a just buildings and people that are living there, and we have to keep everybody safe. I just want to make sure that everybody can protest peacefully and that we can do that well. The second change I want to see is systemic change. We've got to deal with the question of race and how people are disenfranchised. So yes, we have to do some hard work.
You hear her talking about the systemic change. You hear the mayor talking about not something that comes overnight, comes over a year or two. This is the anger and frustration you were seeing playing out across the country over several issues that have plagued minority communities for decades, for generations in our country.
And we've heard so many people talking about bringing their children out there because they want to see this world be a better place for them, and showing them the power that they can have when people unite under the single cause and with a single voice. There are certainly, we've seen in this video now, some very small children that were out there earlier during the day. I know that we spoke to at least one 9-year-old little girl who was out earlier this evening as well. If we can go back, if it's possible to go back to one of our shots that we had out there live. If not, I can give you a little bit more information about what's happening at Romare Bearden Park right now as we speak. So I know we saw all those emergency vehicles going over there, and I can tell you that we're hearing from our crew over there. Kendall Morris says that there is a combination of fireworks and tear gas. She's there with our photojournalist Kevin Wardlaw, who's reporting seeing both of those. Certainly not the kind of tone that you want for your children at this hour, so hopefully a lot of those children have cleared out. Let's hear, though, from that 9-year-old who we spoke to earlier this evening.
It didn't take me that long because I felt so bad about George Floyd dying. He had a family, he had kind friends, and he just wanted to live his life. He had a daughter, he just wanted to live. But he was like, please, please, I can't breathe. And you didn't even care about that.
It just breaks your heart to hear that little girl and the reality that she has to think about and process at such a young age. Wow. I want to check back in with our Kendall Morris, who is in the thick of what we've been seeing and hearing outside of Romare Bearden Park. Kendall, I hope you're safe, first of all. Where are you and what's happening?
Yeah, Fred, we're on the side of Romare Bearden Park over by the 7-Eleven. There's a lot of emergency vehicles here. We're not quite sure what the response is to. We're walking up towards the intersection and we're seeing more people in this area. It looks like firefighters are assessing the situation at the 7-Eleven. This is an area that we had just gotten away from because there was a group that was trying to throw things at us, and so we had to move around to a different vantage point to try to be safe here. And it looks like there's broken glass at the 7-Eleven, and they are responding to the situation here. Yeah, you can see it there. It's on the side of the building. The firefighters are here on scene trying to, looks like, secure the building at this time. Lots of people standing around here. And lots of people down the street. And so no one is chanting anything. And it looks like most people are just kind of sitting back and watching at this point and responding to the situation.
Kendall, are you...
So we'll keep you posted as we assess everything.
Kendall, are you smelling any smoke where you are? When we're seeing this many fire trucks, that's the obvious question of, is there smoke? Are you seeing any indication of any flames or anything like that?
No flames at this point. We do see firefighters inside of the building, but it doesn't look like any fires from where we are. Of course, the response was very quick. This was not this way 10 minutes ago when we were in this same area, and so this just happened in the last few minutes here. So if there was any type of fire inside, I'm sure that firefighters are here in a very quick response time to be able to put that out. And so it looks like they have things under control here. Lots of people just standing off to the sidelines watching as they are trying to secure the building.
Kendall, you mentioned that people were throwing things in your direction. Did you see what was being thrown?
I didn't really get a chance to see it because my back was turned when it was thrown at us. Kevin says that my photographer who's with me, he said it was an egg that was thrown at us and some other things. I could see a splatter on the ground that just barely missed our crew. And so we haven't seen that type of hostility in the protest. From earlier today, everything has been peaceful. People have been civil. And a lot of people have been thankful for the media out here trying to portray all sides of what is going on here, and most people have been very civil in their demonstrations, and we've been very appreciative of that. But suddenly it appears that at least some groups, the tone has changed for them.
All right, Kendall, we want you to stay safe, you and Kevin both, so thanks for your reporting out there. We'll check in with you again in another moment. So you've just heard Kendall talking about, we're looking at pictures right now at Romare Bearden Park where it appears that somebody has thrown some kind of an object or has shattered the glass there at the 7-Eleven. Whatever it was has prompted a number of first responders, firefighters and others to rush into the scene there. Our photographer there on the scene, Kevin Wardlaw, said that it appeared that there was some kind of a firework or something like that was thrown, and they are now seeing the effects of some tear gas as well. So obviously a very developing fluid situation emerging at Romare Bearden Park. We're not seeing huge crowds gathering there now, at least not from this vantage point anyway. We're seeing kind of spin-offs, a few people here, a few people there. Are you seeing large crowds, Fred, as you're looking at this video?
No, I'm not, but like you said, we are seeing them elsewhere, and that is one of the things that we have to keep in mind too as we see these large crowds and these people marching, is that we are seeing seeing this unfold in the middle of a pandemic. COVID-19 plaguing the country, and obviously something that we've been talking about for several weeks now, a few months, social distancing, which we're not seeing, but we actually heard our Mayor Pro Temp of Charlotte, Julie Eisel, talking about earlier. Let's take a listen to this.
And it's so hard in this pandemic to not be able to come together. And this is a time we got to all come together, this time more than ever. Even if you don't know what you're going to say, just being here and showing support is really important. People are hurting. People are really hurting. It's so hard to stay at home and not be with each other and express support.
And that's exactly what you saw earlier as hundreds of people gathered in the park to express themselves in so many ways, signs and chants. And again, the social distancing seems to be one of those things that people are not occupied with. That is a huge global headline, but here in the United States, the big headline that seems to have taken over the news cycle, the protest and the anger going on across the country following the death of George Floyd at the hands of a Minneapolis police officer.
Well, and now there's the very real fear too about all the people who have come together to demonstrate about the loss of one life, potentially now putting their lives on the line because of this pandemic that we're in the middle of. And when you stop and you think about that, it's powerful to think that people may be unwittingly risking their own lives to demonstrate about the loss of another life. And it speaks volumes, I think, about the urgency and how important this is for so many people. But there's also the very real reality of this is that we know that COVID-19 is disproportionately hitting certain communities, black and brown communities, and many of the people who are out demonstrating today are members of those communities. And so the concern would be what happens a few days from now.
Yeah, and again, you know, the healthcare issue, one aspect of this too, but people so concerned and so driven by everything that they are seeing happening that they're willing to come out, because it's more than just, as we say, the death of George Floyd, and even more than healthcare at this point. There are other economic issues, affordable housing, and the treatment of people among police, and just the racism that has been systemic in the country over the years that has kind of, in some ways, many critics will say the United States has been kicking the can down the road for centuries now on this.
Absolutely, and those are the messages that I think we're going to continue to hear for days to come, long after some of these demonstrations have started to die down. Let's go check back in with our Kendall Morris now about what she's seeing where she is at Romare Bearden.
Yeah, Tanya, back this way you can see that there's a line of officers back this way. This is on, it looks like Martin Luther King Jr. And just a few minutes ago, they used some type of explosive to try to disperse the crowd. I wasn't sure exactly what kind. I'm not as familiar with the different types that they have been using, but it appears to have some type of effect on the crowd, and they are dispersing from that area. This is just down the street from the 7-Eleven here next to Romare Bearden Park that the glass was shattered on the side of it. Firefighters are responding to that now, and people are sitting along the side of Romare Bearden Park watching as the fire department responds to that situation. Again, just down the street you see the police line as they are trying to disperse the crowd and get people to peacefully disperse from gathering tonight. And so we'll keep you posted on what's happening here. Nothing has gone off in the last minute, but they have been using some type of explosive to try to get people to disperse.
Okay, Kendall, please stay safe out there. I want to check in with our Lexi Wilson, who is live up the street from you. Lexi, what are you seeing?
I'm sorry? Hey, yeah, so, you know, take a look at that smashed window outside of the 7-Eleven. Now, this is also an apartment building complex, and I actually have one of those apartment residents here with me. So you told me, I mean, what happened? What are you being told right now?
We weren't told much. We just kind of could hear the chaos from inside, and then our fire alarm went off, and they said, please evacuate the building. So everyone was kind of evacuating, and we're just kind of out here waiting to hear what the next move is.
What was your initial reaction when you kind of heard that chaos and the fire alarm?
I kind of thought it was maybe someone just pulled it, but then my family was watching the news as we were walking down the stairs, and they said that someone had tried to break into the 7-Eleven.
Definitely. And since you live in Uptown, how have the last few nights been with all the protests?
I was actually out of town until tonight, so it's been crazy. I saw the fireworks thrown at Ink and Ivy. It's, you know what, the protests, I will say, have been very admirable, very peaceful. Everything that I've seen all day, everyone was so peaceful and all like together for a common cause, both the cops and the people protesting. In just the last couple minutes, someone threw a firework, and it seems like a completely different crowd of people out here.
Well, thank you so much for your time. Yes, stay safe. All right, and as you just heard, right, residents have been asked to evacuate. Take a look at that window.
All right, you're taking a live look at the window outside of the 7-Eleven. This is right across the street from Romare Bearden Park, the focal point of police and their response at this hour, cleaning up after some agitators, I'm assuming, broke those windows and caused all kinds of chaos in that area during these protests this evening.
So one of the people who we have talked about who was really going to be down there hoping to help drive the tone of these demonstrations was somebody who's no stranger to a lot of this unrest. His name is Greg Jackson, and he works with an organization called Heal Charlotte. He founded that organization 4 years ago in the midst of the demonstrations that we saw during the Keith Lamont Scott shooting. He was one of the demonstrators down there, and at the time he was challenged by Gary McFadden, who was not yet sheriff, who told him, what are you going to do tomorrow? What are you going to do when this all goes away to really impact your community? And so Greg took that charge to heart, and he formed an organization that now helps to uplift some of the youth in our community. And so he has been down there today working tirelessly to try to keep things peaceful and respectful as much as possible. Let's hear from Greg.
You have to respect someone that can move in just militant and can control a crowd. There hasn't been leaders out here for the last 2 nights, and it's time that the leaders step out. I derive from a protest. I understand the protest, so I had to do some things out here. I had to do something.
You heard him saying that he was derived from a protest and that he needed to be down there. Former Governor Pat McCrory is now weighing in right now about what happened 4 years ago here in Charlotte. Let's hear from him.
One lesson I learned in 2016, the anarchists that we had in Charlotte, when I had to call the National Guard actually over the mayor's objections, don't care what the mayor or governor or at that time President Obama was said. They don't even care what the protesters are protesting about. Their cause is destruction of capitalism, destruction of our governmental units, and destruction of our police. And they use incredible art of war tactics. Do not underestimate them.
Former governor. Powerful words right there from the former governor, speaking about some of the lessons learned and some of the things that people were talking about there. Let's go now to our Kendall Morris, if we can. Is she up and available to talk to us?
Yeah, Tanya, I'm here.
What are you seeing where you are right now?
Yeah, well, Tanya, just down this way, there is a line of police officers right here on Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard. They're trying to push the crowd in the other direction, away from Romare Bearden Park. Just a few minutes ago, we saw people start to run this way. There you see, they're firing something into the crowd. We're not exactly sure what that is. We're trying to keep a safe distance from that police line, but every few minutes we've seen people start to run back towards the park. So there is something happening over there to where police are trying to disperse the crowds and using the methods that they have available to them. Now, just down this other direction, that's where that 7-Eleven is that had the glass broken on the side of it. We still have the fire department here. They are trying to secure that location and keep people from getting inside of the store and taking any items from it. And so they are on scene working to stand by and keep the crowds that are gathered outside from getting inside. So we'll keep you updated on what's happening here.
All right, Kendall Morris reporting live for us. Thank you, Kendall. And as she said, those protesters, or the people at least in the streets right now, are being dispersed by some kind of crowd dispersal technique. Don't know if it's rubber bullets or flashbangs or what. We haven't heard any bangs in the time that we've taken this image, but they are dispersing. And this has been the scene, really. This has been the tone of this protest over the past couple of hours as things have escalated over the evening. People really tempers flaring and getting frustrated from what began as a peaceful gathering or gatherings, plural, earlier this afternoon, where we saw people standing hand in hand despite being in the middle of a pandemic where social distancing is preached. People standing really close to each other in agreement, in peace, over their disdain for the systemic racism that we've seen that got George Floyd in the situation that we find today.
So one thing that did stick out to me in that interview that we heard from Lexi, that woman who lived above the 7-Eleven, is that she said that she was watching the demonstrations earlier and she saw how peaceful and united it was, and that she said that it appeared as though the crowd had changed. And that's the same thing that we have heard night after night, that as the evening moves on, you see a shift from the people who were there with a common message to perhaps people who may be feeling a little more volatile or who may be taking some more aggressive action. And we're certainly seeing that play out now as we're approaching the midnight hour. Some of the scenes that we saw earlier, a stark contrast to what we're seeing now. So many people who were coming together, speaking with a collective voice, marching as one, demonstrating, sitting in the middle of the uptown streets at one point. We saw very poignant images of people sitting together in the streets, talking about the issues that matter most to them. And now tonight, the types of things that the mayor was concerned about, the types of things that the governor was concerned about. One thing that we haven't mentioned is that we know we've seen the National Guard in other cities, and we know that this mayor has declared a state of emergency here, which would allow this city to use any and all of the resources up to and including the National Guard. And in fact, Governor Roy Cooper told us earlier this evening that he was activating 450 National Guardsmen and women across the state, and he said that he had requests from multiple cities, including Charlotte. A different message, though, coming from the city of Charlotte, saying at this point they have not decided to activate any National Guardsmen and women here in our city. We have seen some of their vehicles in and around the uptown area, but we know that they've been here anyway because they were already here with the COVID-19 response. So we're kind of watching to see if that's needed, and that's a resource that we know that the city has in its back pocket. But by and large, what we have seen tonight has not risen to anything close to needing the National Guard.
Yeah, and all we've seen really are police officers, on their bicycles and in their pickups, handling the crowd as we've seen in previous nights. I want to check in with WCNC Charlotte's Lexi Wilson, who's been standing by for a while now. Lexi, if you can hear me, bring us up to speed on what's going on around you.
Yeah, we'll actually take a look as that fire engine is actually pulling away from the 7-Eleven right now. The 7-Eleven now reads with a sign saying closed. It's been closed off. They've cleaned that area. I do want to show you that damage one more time that we saw from earlier today. Take a look at all that shattered glass just right there on the floor. Definitely dangerous. People are being asked to avoid that area, as well as, just take a look at that big giant hole right there. Now take a look. There are some people, if you want to walk with me a little bit, Adam, still being told to not go in their buildings just yet, just because, a situation happened here and the fire alarms went off in some of these buildings. But I know the 7-Eleven is damaged, but I'm not sure if you guys were able to see this damage on this other apartment building earlier in the show. But take a look at this. This is also some damage that was done to this apartment building. Again, residents are still out here lingering, being asked to kind of stay outside at the moment. And just across the street from these apartments, and as well as the 7-Eleven, is, that park, Romare, Bearden, where all those peaceful protests were this morning. And we did hear that one resident kind of say the same thing and echo and say the vibe has really changed tonight. And again, we're kind of just seeing that as we're looking at these glass windows, or these windows broken, I should say, and the glass on the floor. I'll throw it back to you guys in studio. That's the latest out here.
Yeah, and I was going to say, one of the mixed messages that we've been hearing, but has been consistently mixed across the country, the damage and the vandalism that we're seeing. Some people saying they agree that people who are protesting have a right to be frustrated enough to do damage or exercise whatever anger and ire they have over everything that's going on. But then you have a lot of voices and even some proof that I've seen, video I've seen of people who do not live in these communities, who are primarily responsible for the kind of vandalism and disruption during what should be peaceful protests that we're seeing.
Let's check in now with our Brandon Goldner if we can. Brandon earlier was watching a woman who was detained, and he had seen large groups of people starting to kind of move down the road. Brandon, where are you now? What are you seeing where you are? Are we looking at these broken glass shots from you?
Yeah, Tanya and Fred, so I do want to emphasize everything, the protests have been peaceful. This entire time. It started to escalate a little bit when it came to the fireworks that were fired. And again, wanted to emphasize that it's been peaceful. You know, this is the worst of the extent of this, which is a good thing. I mean, compared to what we saw in Key Scott 4 years ago, right now it's just broken glass and a couple things knocked down. That's pretty much it. There's definitely the pepper spray, the tear gas is in the air, and right now we are seeing a line of vehicles coming through. We have the officers in the bikes that are staged up ahead. We have people over at the Wells Fargo headquarters at the plaza right over there, milling around and waiting around. We still have some people with the Black Lives Matter signs and with some of not so much chanting right now. A lot of people on their phones, a lot of people filming what's going on. Again, this is really the extent of the damage, which is a good thing. I mean, it's fuck the police. All right, thank you.
All right, we're going to put that audio down. Like I said, this is live television, and sometimes the anger gets the better of some of the folks out there, and we hear language that we don't like to hear on our air. But you just heard Brandon talking about the scene where he is, and you know what the protests have looked like and the damage has looked like. You're looking at live images of police there as they are gathering and holding a line. Protesters that we've seen, they've been handling a bunch of situations. The focal point in the past 30 minutes, 45 minutes or so, the 7-Eleven and some apartments just outside of Romare Bearden Park, where damage has been done to some entryways and also the front of the 7-Eleven, and police have secured that area. Residents were standing out in front of the apartment building, bewildered and concerned about the damage and the tone of the protest, the difference that tone has taken from earlier this afternoon to later this evening, and that's been historically what we've seen. As sunlight falls and the night goes on, we see tempers flaring. At this point, we know that there have been 9 arrests during the night of protesters, and CMPD says that most of them, or several of them I should say, several of those arrests involve weapons charges. We know that in North Carolina it is illegal, even if you have a permit, it is illegal to have a firearm during a protest.
So one thing that we saw too, Fred, you were talking about police really holding the line down here. We saw that at a couple of different points tonight and earlier this afternoon as well. So by and large, everything was peaceful. But there were a couple of outliers, one being near the Whole Foods uptown earlier today. We saw crowds of people who were attempting to storm the Whole Foods in uptown, and we saw an immediate urgent response from CMPD to try to calm some of that down. We also saw a number of demonstrators who were moving toward 277, something that we saw yesterday where we saw over 100 people who were on 277 blocking the road. Obviously a situation that CMPD and the demonstrators may be considering to be a dangerous one. Today we saw an attempted repeat of that as demonstrators were moving over towards 77, but CMPD immediately held the line there. It was as if they were anticipating it, or they knew what the intention was of the crowd because of what they saw happen successfully yesterday, and they made sure that that did not happen today. So we've seen a lot of these attempted fires or larger gatherings that have been quickly put down by the police tonight.
Yeah, and throughout the scope, as the protests have become more sophisticated, police have definitely ramped up their response to the situation. Of course, we will continue to follow this, and we'll have much more in our newscast starting tomorrow morning at 4:30 a.m. on Wake Up Charlotte.
Zaxby's. Try it with fried pickles for a limited time.
The following program contains dangerous stunts that should not be reenacted and mature material. Viewer discretion is advised.
Yep, we're up right now, so stream as long as you can. Just so you know, it's a little tense. So just we may have to move.
They're ready to shoot you, so get back. Like, don't get them again. They doing too much already. We on South Tryon and 3rd Street. They are the mountain. This is what they want. They starting this shit. Look how they lined up. And but if y'all can still see, he's still over there in the back, y'all. They still have not transported him yet.
Whoa. Oh, I'm sorry.
It's still people behind me, and it's still people behind the police officers. Like, 2 blocks of people. They're separated. Y'all don't see
I got you. Damn, we can't see that.